Welcome to the Right Time Podcast. The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
So yesterday, as we were wrapping up another delightful edition of The Right Time, we started to get the word there might be a trade between the Cavs and the Celtics involving Kyrie Irving and Isaiah Thomas. And it was like, you want to talk about it right now? I was like, nah, man, say that for tomorrow. A, I didn't have time to gather my thoughts. B, what else are we going to talk about tomorrow if we don't talk about this? So we sat on this, man. We put it in the icebox for a little while, just let it chill out for you. And then, boom! We wound up with the trade. So Kyrie Irving goes to Boston. In return, Cleveland gets Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, Ante Zizic. Is that it? Zizic? I'm going to call him DJ Scratch. Anyway, and on top of that, the Nets' unprotected 2018 first-round pick. People are not as wild about that pick as they were about the 2017 pick because that looked far more likely to be number one overall, which it in fact turned into. But I looked at the Nets, and people are like, this Nets team isn't as sorry as last year's Nets team, but it sure looks sorry to me. Like, I mean, the Nets are so sorry that I don't know, like, what the gradations are of sorriness. I don't have a great answer for you there. But anyway, the trade has been made, and guys, that feels like a lot to give up for Kyrie Irving. A lot. So, like, what exactly was Danny Ainge thinking? And here's Danny Ainge rambling about it for about a minute.
It presented itself. It wasn't available earlier in the summer, this same opportunity. And these are very difficult decisions, as you can imagine. We face these difficult decisions at all times during the year. You never know when something may present itself, but an opportunity for us presented itself, even though it is a high price tag. It is a great value that we're giving up. We love Isaiah and love Jay Crowder, and we're just getting to know Ante Zizic, who we've watched and nurtured over the last year, and giving up a quality first-round pick. But acquiring a 25-year-old perennial all-star, a player that, fits a timeline for us and is a fantastic offensive player, is one of the best offensive players in the league. You have to pay a heavy price.
All right, couple things. One, Jay Crowder got to be like, stop lying, fool. You don't love me. You think Jay Crowder would hear about that right now? We love Jay Crowder. Fool, you don't love me. Every time y'all got a halfway decent small forward that comes out there, y'all clapping, trying to get them to come here. Fool, you don't love me. They think about that in that meeting with Jay Crowder. Like, Jay, just wanted to tell you that. To start with, we love you. Hey, man, get your hand off my shoulder. Yeah. Man, take another step back. That's what I'd do if I was you. Yeah. But there's the other part of this, right? This is a high price to give up for Kyrie Irving. And it is typical that if you want to get a 25-year-old perennial all-star, because aren't there many guys who are 25 and perennial all-stars, then you do have to pay a high price. The only thing about that was every time I heard Danny Ainge talking about Kyrie Irving, when he went to the superlatives, he went to the superlatives about how great of an offensive player he was, and that he was such a great offensive player, and that, he's one of the best offensive players in the league. And I feel like for the package that they gave up, you better be getting back more than just one of the best offensive players in the league. You at the very least need to be able to come into this conversation and say, but you know what? He's also better than you think on defense. He ain't even bothered to tell that lie. He was just like, nah. He's a really, 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 really good offensive player. That's where he was on that. And I just need to know, you gave up one really good offensive player and in return got another really good offensive player, neither of whom plays very much defense. How much better did you actually make your team in the course of making this deal? Now, I totally understand the argument, and people have been hitting me with this as though I hadn't heard this anywhere, but Isaiah Thomas's deal is up at the end of the year. If you give Danny Ainge credit for anything in this, is he did not leave himself in a position to make the sentimental decision about Isaiah Thomas, right? It's always very, very easy to get really caught up in a guy that has a great season like that, especially when he's little and somewhat cuddly. Then, bring him back. Fans love him. Kids love him especially. And, in case of emergency, like somebody get food poisoning or something like that, put him in a green suit, top hat, send him out there at halftime. You never know when you might have to do that, man. Isaiah brought a lot to the organization. It's not just what he did, it's what he could do. But anyway, they got a taller version of Isaiah Thomas. Now, the taller version part matters because we talked about this. How much faith are you putting in a 5'9", ball-dominant point guard to make it happen for your team? Purely talking about, like, the physiology of this. You would rather Kyrie Irving be that guy. You'd rather have a guy his height with the ball than a guy who is 5'9". You feel better about that guy's ability to get his shot off. However, I still have fresh in my mind a memory of that dude. Shannon, what game was that? Was that game 3 where he just dribbled it out, where they had a chance to get a 2-for-1, and instead he decided to dribble the ball for 20 seconds?
Yeah, I believe so.
And he plays on the same team with LeBron, right? That's what I'm thinking about?
That's the same guy, yeah.
It was game 4, right? They won game 3, didn't they? No, they were down 3-0, and they went away. Either way it goes, no. I don't think that this is what you want. I am not sold that this is what you want if you are the Celtics. Like, if you're going to hold on to this and play this game where we're stacking all these assets, I feel like you needed to come back with more than Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward. Like, this is not coming back with LeBron and Chris Bosh. I feel like you needed to come back with a little bit more than they ultimately brought back with them. I also think, though, to be fair to them, you got to make a move on Isaiah Thomas when you can. And they got him out of there, right? They got him out of there. They got something back. I think there's something to it. But I'm looking at this Celtics team, and Marcus Smart, he is a very good defensive player, even if I find him to be perhaps the most annoying player in the NBA. He is a very good defensive player. But Avery Bradley is a boss on defense, and they just traded him. And Jay Crowder was a boss on defense, and they just put a stamp on him, too, and they just sent him out of town. I don't fully understand what the team is that they're going to trot out here this year. So, Shannon, what are we looking at as a starting five? We're looking at Kyrie, Marcus Smart, Gordon Hayward, Al Horford.
And one of the Morris twins.
Oh, they do have one of those.
Yes, because they traded one of their better defensive players in Avery Bradley for Morris.
That's right. They got back the one who plays.
The one with the beard.
Yeah. Which one is it?
And plays in the phone posits.
No. Is this the good one?
It's the one with the tattoos.
Yeah. But is he the good one? Have we figured out which one of them was the good one?
That's to be determined.
I think it's Markieff. Markieff's the one that played in Washington, right?
Yes.
Is he the good one?
They traded for Marcus.
Okay, they got Marcus. There we are. They have Marcus.
And there's also a possibility, speaking of their start lineup, that they could go with Jaylen Brown as well.
That is true.
Two guard.
That is true. I tell you this, though. It sounds like Kyrie going to get one lesson in passing the ball from whichever one of the Morrises they got. I already forgot. Hey, you're going to start passing the ball. I'm going to tell you this right now. You're going to start looking up at me when I'm open. So here's what Boston's trying to do. And to be fair also to the Celtics, I feel like the Celtics are in an interesting situation because I've never seen a team that's been in a position where I can make an argument they should be playing for a championship and make an argument just as compelling that they should be playing for the future, right? Like, I don't know how exactly you balance those two things. I'm inclined to believe that if you got a championship window, you try to go for the championship. Do they have a championship window legitimately? That's a good question because I don't think this team is any kind of competition for Golden State, at least not as it is currently constructed. They are making the call that they think a team whose two best players are Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward can make a push at a championship. Do you really think a team whose two best players are Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward can make a push at a championship? In fact, I don't even know where Al Horford falls into this one. Is Al Horford the guy to get everybody else shots? Like, is Al Horford the playmaker? I mean, I think the argument a lot of people make is, well, Brad Stevens will figure something out. He can't figure out more than these dudes are actually capable of doing. Right? Like, maybe he can come in and do like a Larry Brown magic trick on this team, but I don't look at this and be like, okay, now you've got the roster that's going to be LeBron and them. I don't see it. I don't see that there. And look, they got 2 years to make a decision on Kyrie. Kyrie's got 2 years to make a decision on them. This is what Danny Ainge decided was worth cashing in on. Kyrie Irving. He likes Kyrie Irving a lot more than I do.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
So, yeah, we talked about this. Kyrie Irving heading to Boston. On the way back is Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, the homies, and the unprotected 2018 first-round pick of the Brooklyn Nets. That is the trade. I don't fully get this for Boston because I'm not so sold that this makes Boston better right now. I'm not sure it makes Boston better down the line because I thought that part of the problem Boston had was with Isaiah Thomas. Now, the Isaiah Thomas problem was he was 5'9", and you don't want somebody 5'9" dominating the ball like that. But also, I wasn't sure how I felt about a score-first, ball-dominant, defensively lacking point guard. And then they went and got a younger one who'll probably be there for longer. You kind of box yourself into a similar problem as what you had before. don't quite get it. 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. Let's hit the phones and talk to Mike in California. Mike, thanks for calling the right time. Fine, then, Mike. Be like that. Let's go with Brian in California. Brian, thanks for calling the right time.
Yeah, I just got something to say about these fans out here burning jerseys, man. Like, I don't understand why anybody even gives these fools any type of publicity. And like, if you out there burning your jersey and you got a woman, I don't even understand how you still have a woman. Like if you're single and you're not there burning jerseys, like it just shows a clear that you are unstable as a person. Like I just don't even get that. And let me get back to something. Get back to a little bit of funny about. I don't get to listen to your show each and every day until like later on in the evening. But back to last week when he was talking about Ezekiel Elliott and his attorneys, and they were talking about their evidence, talking about the evidence, what they had, and his attorney said that maybe his girl was waiting tables and she got them bruises. Like, I've dated some women that waited tables and they ain't never came home with no bruises on their bodies. So I love your show and I love how you get into the funny and you like get off into a little comedic rant. I didn't understand how you didn't just find that completely hilarious.
Yeah.
But that is one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah. I feel you, bro. I appreciate the call, but that was a little awkward at the time. It was a little awkward. It was a little awkward. I mean, I saw something where somebody burned a Kyrie jersey, somebody burned Isaiah Thomas jersey. How many people are actually doing this, or are we all sending around the same picture? Like, serious question on that. Like, are we all sending around the same picture on that? Like, is this really that much phenomenon? How you burning jerseys on a trade? I thought this is how y'all liked it. Personnel decisions made by management. Anyway, the Cleveland Cavaliers now have Isaiah Thomas. Hey, and how does this go? Like, for the Cavs, how exactly does this go? Apparently, the Cavs were concerned that Kyrie Irving didn't even want to come to training camp in the first place. Like, this was a wrap. The bridge been burnt. Ship be sinking. Time was up. So they went ahead and made the move. I have to say, I think they got more out of that move than I ever thought they would have been able to get in a trade for Kyrie, right? So, like, credit to Kobe Altman, the new dude on the team, who doesn't look the way you might have thought he did if you'd seen his resume and seen his name. But anyway, Kobe made a good deal. Isaiah Thomas, I think at the very least, is a good short-run option. They're not obligated to have him past this year, although it's not like clearing him off the books is going to all of a sudden get you all this cap relief. He only makes like $7 million a year right now. So, I mean, I doubt they're going to come out here and offer him the super extension fresh out the gate. No, nor do I think that he would take it, because there's no telling if LeBron James is going to be there or not. But for the Cavs, I can make an argument that this is as much as they could expect to get in a trade for Kyrie Irving. They got some additional depth on the wing, which is important, because otherwise, Shannon, wouldn't they be coming out there with Richard Jefferson getting some significant minutes?
I mean, who do you got? You got what? Chump and Chump, still JR, and Richard Jefferson, right? That would have been
bad news. I think that would have been bad news. Is that the best way to put it? Did you miss anybody?
I'm thinking that's it.
Kyle
right?
Korver.
Oh, wow. Ooh. Oh, I forgot about Kyle Korver since he disappeared in the finals.
Yes.
Forgot all about him.
Yes, Kyle Korver in year 15, by the way. Kyle Korver. Yeah, no. So, like, getting Jay Crowder, that one matters. Like, I think that's a helpful piece to have. Isaiah Thomas, I'll be curious to see how ultimately they work it out there. But, I mean, you can make it work regular season-wise while having him, certainly. And you don't have to depend on him. Because, see, the thing that Kyrie's going to have to deal with playing for Boston is he's the only dude on that squad that in the postseason you trust to get his own shot. Remember, in Utah, when it came down as a time in the playoffs to get your own shot, they didn't go to Gordon Hayward. They went to Joe Johnson. Right. So, like, this is how this goes. Like, Kyrie is going to be the guy on that team to get his own shot. Isaiah Thomas will not be the only guy on his team that's now expected to go out there and be able to get his own shot. It won't just be him. So I'll be curious to see how he's freed up being off the ball and having LeBron as the guy to take the ball a lot. Like, I'll be curious to see how that goes. It'd also be interesting to see how effective is Isaiah Thomas if he doesn't have the ball all the time. These are the things that we're going to wind up seeing from this squad. But, I mean, did the Cavs get worse? Like, I don't think that Isaiah Thomas is as good a player as Kyrie Irving necessarily, but given that they both have the same deficiencies and the things they both give you positive are roughly the same, did the Cavs get worse? Because I don't think they did. And I don't necessarily know if the Celtics really got better. Which then makes you be like, yo, why did anybody make this trade? Like, I'm torn in this where I look at two teams who made this trade, and honestly, I feel like they both are going to be about where they were. That's where I feel like it was. I don't feel like Kyrie Irving takes the Celtics over the top to win the East, let alone win a championship, right? Like, Celtics still just talking about winning the East. Do I think this makes them better than the Cavs? Nah, because I looked, there's a whole lot of names that were involved in that trade, but you know which one wasn't? LeBron. LeBron wasn't in that trade. Like, the Celtics are not good enough at this point where I could ignore the LeBron factor and say, yeah, I think they'll win 4 out of 7. Maybe we'll see. Maybe this will turn out different as the regular season goes on. I don't know, but I'm not there. I'm just not there. And the Celtics are asking for an outlier to happen if they're talking about winning a championship with this squad, where your best 2 players are Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward and you win a championship. Man, I can give you maybe 2 examples that are similar. One of them is the 04 Pistons, and I don't even know how similar that is necessarily. The other one is the 2014 Spurs. That's it. Otherwise, man, you need more firepower up top. Celtics have now gone, Shannon, from being a handful of low spades. I feel like Kyrie, is Kyrie a deuce or the ace of spades?
Because of the defensive deficiencies, I would say he's an ace.
You go with the ace. So Gordon Hayward, are we making him the queen?
He's a queen.
He's a queen? Yeah. I feel like is King too high?
You mentioned earlier about the Utah having to go to Joe Johnson in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
He's a queen.
He is a queen. Joe Johnson's a king. At least late in the game, saying Joe Johnson cutting the queen.
I'm saying if you're supposed to be the guy, but yet Joe Johnson's the man getting the shots late for you.
Yes,
you're a queen.
Year 16, Joe Johnson. By the way, yeah, so you're Joe. A queen. So how many books you talking about? How many books you pulling with an ace and a queen? Ace and queen, your 2 high cards in your hand. How many books you pulling? How many books would you feel like? Because they don't have a whole lot of aces over there, right? Like, how many guys do they have? I mean, I guess it's a handful of low spades. It's a handful of low spades. So I guess they feel like maybe they can pull 4. Maybe they can pull 4. Nah, I feel like 5's asking for a lot. 5's asking for a lot.
I just don't see them as a team that would go board. So, yes, 5 is asking for a lot, but I think they think their hand is better than board.
Here's what it is. I feel like they got 2 books they can count and an array of possibles. They can wind up with anywhere between 2 books and 6 books. But you need 7. You need to get to 7. You need to get to 7. At least get to 7.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Joining us now, he covers the NBA for the Boston Globe. His name is Gary Washburn. Now, Gary, were you surprised that the Celtics gave up as much as they did to get Kyrie Irving?
I was a little. I was surprised they gave up that Brooklyn pick because they coveted that so much. But to make the salaries match, Bomani, you knew that they were going to have to give up more than one player. It was not going to be a straight-up swap, Isaiah for Kyrie Irving. So you knew that they were going to have to send multiple players. The Brooklyn pick surprised me, but I was also surprised they didn't have to give up Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. I think the Celtics are thrilled that they didn't have to give up either of those 2 guys.
Now, with this Brooklyn pick, is it that the improvements that the Nets have made in the offseason made that pick less valuable?
Maybe, because they do have a rather decent team. I'm talking about decent, talking about making the playoffs, but decent, not terrible. You know what I'm saying? Like 25 wins, 28 wins. So, yeah, that does make the pick a little bit less attractive because they added Allen Crabbe, D'Angelo Russell. They have real NBA players now, Bomani. So that should make the pick a little bit different, and it's not as maybe as attractive. But I think Cleveland will gladly take it. They've missed some first-round picks over the years. They've traded them all. And then you remember that, Anthony Bennett fiasco. So I think they're looking forward to having a lottery pick.
All right, talking to Gary Washburn of the Boston Globe here on The Right Time. Now with Isaiah Thomas, how difficult was it for them to part with him?
Very, because in his 2.5 years, he had become a fan favorite. I mean, you saw it, Bomani. He played through his sister's death. He busted his mouth and lost teeth. He didn't miss a game during the playoffs until The hip injury sidelined him. People loved him. He was good in the community. He embraced Boston. A lot of athletes, as you know, can't play here. They don't like playing here. It's a rabid fan base. Isaiah embraced the pressure. He embraced bringing the Celtics back to respectability, and he wanted to be the face of the franchise. But his contract was expiring, and that's the only thing. That's what made this whole thing difficult. So there's a collective, like a bittersweet emotion in Boston today. They like Kyrie Irving. They're excited about the possibility of Kyrie Irving, but I don't think anyone around here wanted to lose Isaiah and especially see him go to Cleveland.
Well, do you think the Celtics had already decided that he just could not come back for the prices he was going to command?
Yeah, I mean, he kept just talking max contract, which meant he wasn't going to try to take any hometown discount, even though he made 6.2, and let's say something like 22 per year, $22 million would have been a hefty raise. I think he felt respect-wise it was about time he got due, and he was ready to get paid on the back end, and whoever it is going to pay him the $30 million or $27 million plus that he feels like he deserves. So I think that and also his hip injury, we don't know when he'll come back. Danny Ainge hinted that he could miss some regular season time with the hip injury. The fact that he's 28, he'll be 29 in February. When does he lose a step? Do you sign into a 5-year deal? All those questions came into account. And also, Bomani, the fact that Kyrie Irving was available. If Kyrie Irving isn't available, this never happens. Isaiah Thomas is in Boston, and this team goes and tries to beat Cleveland as it is.
All right, we're talking to Gary Washburn of the Boston Globe here on The Right Time. Now, there have been some rumors out that Celtics players didn't necessarily enjoy playing with Isaiah Thomas that much. Have you observed any of that?
No, I do think he's a ball-dominant player, but I do think that he would have embraced playing with Gordon Hayward this year. I don't think he wanted to do all the scoring and then have them get thumped in the Eastern Conference Finals. He understood that this team needed more offense. It needed to share the ball a little bit more. So I don't think he's a selfish guy. He's not a me-first type of guy. But if you give him the ball and give them opportunity to score, like many superstars, he's going to try to score. So he likes himself offensively, Bomani, but I don't think he's a selfish player.
All right, talking to Gary Washburn of the Boston Globe here on The Right Time. Now, of course, the question is, will Kyrie sign a long-term deal? The Celtics have indicated that they think that he'll probably stay. I guess they wouldn't have done that if they thought otherwise. But 2 years is a long time, right?
Yeah, it's a long time to make an impression for the city and the team to make an impression on him. So, yeah, it's a long way to go. So I think the fact that he has 2 years left in his deal, they can make an impression. His dad played college ball in Boston, so he's been here before. So there's some ties here. So I think the Celtics know they've got to put on their best face to keep him. And remember, he'll only be 27 when he hits free agency. So you're talking about – I don't think they'd have any issue giving him a max deal at age 27. And if he remains healthy, he's had some injury history, and we all know the knee injury a couple years ago in the finals. But if he stays healthy, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be back.
Now, given that the Celtics also had to give up Jay Crowder in this deal, are we sure that they got better?
That's a good question. I mean, they gave up a lot of toughness in Crowder, and obviously you're losing 29 points a game in Isaiah Thomas. I think they've got the better player in the deal, money. I'm not sure if they're a better team. This all depends on the chemistry. You got 11 new guys. They have 4 players from last year's Eastern Conference team that made the Eastern Conference Finals. So they got to have a lot of chemistry. You got a lot of bowling that needs to be done, a lot of dinners, a lot of getting to know yous over the next month before training camp, because who knows how it's going to work out with a Marcus Morris, the rookie Gabasili. I mean, there's so many new guys here. Aaron Baines. I mean, just countless guys. Shane Larkin. Like, how are these guys going to, what is Hayward? Who becomes the leader of this team? There's a bunch of questions that need to be answered in the next couple of weeks.
Well, it's also safe to say this team's got to figure out how to play some defense.
Oh, yeah. That's going to be a problem. And let's face it, though, Bomani, you're going to have to outscore old Golden State. Like, Cleveland had a decent defense. They shut down the Celtics, and Golden State scored on them like they weren't even there. So I think the philosophy is, you know what, we can defend. That'd be great. But Golden State's going to still drop 120 on us. So if you're the Celtics, you're trying to get offensive and then figure out defense later and maybe have the arsenal try to outscore teams like that. I don't think the Celtics feel like they can compete with Golden State at this level, but I think they do feel like they can win the East. and they're going to need offense. Last year, they were a solid defensive team, and Cleveland scored on them like a hot knife through butter.
All right, that is Gary Washburn, covers the NBA for the Boston Globe. Check his work out over there, my man. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bo.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
We've been talking about this Kyrie to the Celtics trade. Let's hit the phones and talk to Justin in Ohio. Justin, thanks for calling The Right Time.
Hey, Bo, what's going on, baby? How you doing?
Doing all right, man.
Hey, I just want to, first of all, say, man, you're the man when you disarm all them haters who call you. You kill them, and they have no response, so I appreciate that
Hey, thank you, man.
But interesting thing about this whole trade that I don't think people are talking about is now that they have a little more cap room, the luxury tax number is down a little bit, and now you look at the roster, we have a whole lot of assets. Are they all-stars? Maybe not, but they're still very good assets. So I think that sets up real well, kind of like what Aaron was saying, for a mid-season trade that could do very well for LeBron and then the Cavs making a run to going towards the playoffs. So that's all I wanted to say, man. You stay up, and thanks for all your hard work.
Hey, man, I appreciate that, man. And I do think that's an interesting level to the thing with the Brooklyn pick is that can be packaged with something else and turned into a player, all depending upon what the time horizon is in Dan Gilbert's mind. If Dan Gilbert gets us right now, not now, but right now, then that pick will wind up going somewhere. Like, that's the piece to get. All right, 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. So, yes, the Celtics and the Cavs are over there making trades with each other. They're supposed to be rivals, right? But both of them in a situation where they're like, look, you can help me get ready for the future. You can help me get ready for the future. Let's put our petty differences aside, and let's do something to help each of us get ready for the future. But, Shannon, correct me if I'm wrong, but is this not the clearest sign that the NBA is like, y'all got this, Warriors? We worried about tomorrow.
Yeah, no, we'll take care of this. When's Draymond's contract up? When's Clay due for a new deal?
Yeah, I think the first one is up in 2 years. They got 2 years. Whichever one of them is first is up first. I think it's Clay that's up first. And that's when we start, like, shuffling the deck on what happens over there, right? But they got to be laughing at the East. They're like, look at that. Neither one of y'all got any better, but y'all so excited. Meanwhile, Kevin Durant over here being 7 feet tall, playing small forward. Steph Curry over here being the best shooter of all time. Draymond Green, being Draymond. Hopefully he won't get arrested. Again. I really feel like, though, like that's where they are head and shoulders over everyone else. That the Cavs and the Celtics basically rearrange things. Hey, let me get your defensively lacking point guard, and we'll give you our defensively lacking point guard. And they're like, yeah, let's go ahead and do this, right? And then the Celtics, who they're good defensive players. And the Celtics were not a great defensive team last year, if I'm not mistaken. Let me go ahead and make sure I got the numbers right on that. But I don't recall them on the per-possession numbers being a great defensive team last year. But Avery Bradley's a really good defensive player. He doesn't play there anymore. Jay Crowder's a good defensive player. He doesn't play there anymore. But and by the way, they were 13th in points allowed per possession. So they're an okay defensive team. But Shannon, tell me this about Jay Crowder. I don't know if you got a better idea of this than I do. Is he actually a good defensive player, or is he like the dude on the team you always got to say is good at defense?
Yes. No, I do think he is actually a good defensive player, and his size helps. The fact that he can guard probably 1 through 3. So I would say, yeah, he's a good defensive player, yeah.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to be honest. There was but so much I could do. Also, he shot 5.5 threes a game last year at 40%. Like, that was the other thing about them losing Avery Bradley. Avery Bradley shot 5 threes a game last year at 39%. So, like, you replace that with Gordon Hayward, and Gordon Hayward is probably a better player than Avery Bradley. But how much of an upgrade is Gordon Hayward over Avery Bradley, for example? Like, how much of an upgrade is Kyrie over Isaiah Thomas? What are you losing when Jay Crowder goes away? Like, these are the questions I have, because the Celtics won like 53 games last year. Now, all that being said, I think we had Gary Washburn on a little earlier. He says they only got 4 guys on the team left who were there last year. So I guess that's what? Al Horford, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown. Shannon, I don't know the fourth because Olynyk doesn't play for them anymore, does he? Terry Rozier.
Rozier is the fourth.
Those are all the guys that were there from last year. So then we add the new guys in there. I don't know how much better you've actually made this team. That's my question. How much better are they? I don't know if the Cavs got any better. Well, I feel like okay. I feel like the Cavs got Jay Crowder, which is something they did not have. But I don't feel like it's going to take them like up to 57 wins or something like that necessarily. Like, how much better did they really get? And the Warriors are like, well, he didn't really have to get better, but, you know, We could.
I can understand, though, why Boston wanted to drastically change the team, because we would both agree that they were pretty limited last year.
Yes.
Like, although they won the East, or had the best record in the East in the regular season, they were limited. So they got to try to switch it up and change everything. And I agree. I do think that Kyrie's an upgrade over Isaiah, and Gordon Hayward, he can give you something. So they had to change their identity. So they're not going to be anywhere near as good defensively as they were last year.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but I'm still, like, the question still remains. How much better really are they, though? Because they needed to be a lot better to compete for a championship this year. Have they just decided that we're not worried about that, we're just trying to win the East? Because I feel like the rest of the league did go kind of all out on some, look, we kind of got to get there. But I guess that's how it felt at the time, right, Shannon? Because the Cavs didn't make the big move that we thought that they needed to make. Houston made the big move, right? Houston got Chris Paul. Houston made the big move to try to compete with Golden State. San Antonio decided, nah, we're good. Oklahoma City, at the very least, made a big move. I don't think it's a big move to compete with the Warriors necessarily, but they made that big play. I guess this is Boston's big play, but I feel like Oklahoma City was so much farther away that their big play could only put them so close. You would think that Boston, if they were making a big play, would make a big play that would get them closer to the ring than the play that they made.
And also, they would make a big play that didn't include the one team that they're competing against in the East.
Yes. Like, only one of y'all can be right. You know what I'm saying? Like, trades are generally not zero-sum propositions, but are they zero-sum propositions when it's the number one and number two team in the conference making the trade? Like, does it become zero-sum by definition at that point? Because I feel like it became zero-sum right there. All right, 888-729-3776. Let's talk to PJ in Virginia. PJ, thanks for calling the right time.
Thanks, Bomani. I just had a quick comment. I actually found myself last night in a weird position. I actually think that Cleveland has gotten better with the pickup of Isaiah Thomas and Jay Crowder. I actually think they're better than going to State now because of their depth. And I actually found myself in a weird position having to stop and actually give Dan Gilbert credit. Like, he's actually doing a good job. And I found that to be really weird, you know?
Well, I do have to say this, and I appreciate the call, that I do think they got more out of that trade than I would have expected for them to get. So, yes. But where you say Cleveland got better than Golden State, I'm going to tell you this one time. You want to keep working here? Stay off the drugs.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
All guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, just like our next guest. He covers the NBA for The Vertical at Yahoo. His name is Shams Charania. Now, Shams, when did you get wind that these two teams are getting close on a deal?
Bomani, I appreciate the time. Appreciate you having me on. Yesterday when I put it out is when I felt comfortable going with it. But these two teams, everyone around the league has been blowing up, Cleveland blowing up their new general manager, Kobe Altman, on a deal. So this has been in the works for weeks. But when I put it out is when I first felt comfortable with it, that it was real, that it was happening.
Now, did this exceed the expectations of what Cleveland thought they could get back for Kyrie?
Well, for weeks, and I report on it, and I've talked about it. The major sticking point has been Jason Tatum, who the Celtics drafted third overall in this past June draft, and that was a major discussion. Would Boston give up Jason Tatum in this potential deal? That's what Cleveland had been holding out for. I know even as soon as this weekend, it was a major sticking point in these discussions. And Boston obviously did not want to part with Jason Tatum. They see Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart as a part of the future, along with Gordon Hayward, Al Horford, and now you bring Kyrie Irving into the fold. They did not want to part with those guys. So to get Kyrie Irving, and I think both sides really went out, but to get Kyrie Irving and not have to give up Tatum, I think that's all Boston wanted, and obviously they had to forfeit a very lucrative and attractive pick, but that's a trade-off that they had to do.
All right, talking to Shams Charania of The Vertical at Yahoo here on The Right Time. Now, from the sounds of it, the Cavs were most concerned with building for the future in that trade. Is that the best way to look at it?
You could say that just because they got the pick, but Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, these are guys you win with, this upcoming season, as long as Isaiah Thomas can come back healthy, which people close to him are confident that his hip will check out as these months progress. And, it's going to be a slow grind for him coming back from this hip injury. It's not an easy one to come back from, especially at the age he's at, in the middle of his prime. But I think they're in a position where they can win now and then also build for the future. Jay Crowder is arguably, the most valuable player in the league if you consider the contract that he's on. So that's a asset that the Cavs could utilize not just this upcoming season, but years moving forward. I mean, they have 3 years left on his deal at a reasonably good number considering these contracts that are coming out. So I think both teams really won out.
Now, were the Cavaliers hell-bent on getting Kyrie traded before the start of training camp?
They were, and, I was told that they had, the team's going to have a mini camp in Santa Barbara, and, they invited everyone on the team, but there wasn't an expectation that Kyrie Irving would show up. And I think these two teams, in talking to owners around the league, ownership level, this is not a major deal. They could have brought Kyrie into camp, without major issue. LeBron James was fine playing with whoever showed up to camp, whether it was Kyrie Irving or now you're going to get Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, and Ante Zizic. But I think it was important for them not to have to deal with this issue going into the season. You lose a preseason game, regular season games, this issue was going to pop up all season long. And it was clear, and Kyrie made it clear in his meeting with them which direction he wanted it to go, and he got the outcome he wanted yesterday.
All right, talking to Shams Charania of The Vertical at Yahoo here on The Right Time. Now, do we have any idea what input LeBron did or did not have in this?
LeBron James is always going to have a level of input over everything Cleveland does. Nothing they do has gone out without him knowing, without his presence looming over the franchise, as it should. He's arguably the best player in the league. But to my knowledge and everything that I've been told is that with this Kyrie Irving situation, this is a Kyrie Irving story. I don't think this is a LeBron story as much as it was a Kyrie Irving story, in that he's the one that had the meeting with Dan Gilbert, made his feelings known, and it was up to Dan Gilbert, Kobe Altman to make the next move. And I think LeBron, I think he stepped aside and allowed the owner of this team at the end of the day, Dan Gilbert, to make his decision.
All right, talking to Shams Charania of The Vertical at Yahoo here on The Right Time. Now, looking at this from the Celtics end of things, did they have any apprehensions about trading for Kyrie Irving, or was this just one they absolutely felt like they had to do?
No, Boston has a lot of assets. Not only now, they've been sitting on tons of assets. If you look back at all the Brooklyn picks they've acquired, all the young players that they've acquired, and even getting Isaiah Thomas in that trade with Phoenix a couple of years ago, I mean, that was a win. No one thought that Isaiah Thomas would become the player he is today. So that was a win in of itself. You're going to have to give a little bit to get, and giving up that pick is going to be an attractive pick next year. Brooklyn isn't going to, probably not going to be a playoff team. It's going to be potentially a high lottery pick. And then you give up Isaiah Thomas, whose production was pretty much on par with Kyrie's, and then Jay Crowder, who can defend positions 1 through 5. So you have to give to get, but I think Boston should be ecstatic. You have arguably the most potent starting 5 in the East. You bring in Kyrie Irving into the fold with Gordon Hayward, Al Horford. You're keeping Jaylen Brown. You have Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart. Terry Rozier is still a member of this team, a young guard that they have faith in. So to keep the guys that they've kept and still get Kyrie Irving, you're going to need to give a little bit. And I think they move forward with the best trade that I think Cleveland could have acquired, the assets that they could have acquired. And for them, you just get a player that now you position yourself in realistically being a threat to compete in the NBA Finals next year.
Now, we had gotten wind, there were reports that come out a few weeks ago that Kyrie had a list of teams that he wanted to go to, and Boston was not on that list as it was initially reported. Did he have to be convinced of this, or is this just another team that maybe we did not know about publicly?
No, I mean, listen, Kyrie Irving can decide, I want this amount of teams. But at the end of the day, Cleveland holds the leverage. The team trading for him holds the leverage. He's under contract under the old CBA maximum contract for the next 2 years. I don't think he's going to extend. There's been no discussion of that to this point. He's going to play out these next 2 years and see how the Celtics fit him, how he likes the city, how he likes the franchise, and play it out. But I don't think he has some apprehension about coming. I think he was excited. I think when he got word of the trade, I mean, listen, Boston and Cleveland, this is going to be a collision course to the finals. I think, Washington, the Wizards are the one team you really can see sneaking in, up on either of those teams. They're able to keep Otto Porter. They still have John Wall, Bradley Beal. They still have a really potent team, but, I mean, you got to look at it. Kyrie Irving, LeBron, this is a collision course to me in the East.
Now, looking at that as a collision course, to Shams Charania of The Vertical at Yahoo, for the Cavs, I mean, the season is about to start, but this seems like a team that's still going to need more. Could you still see them making a deal during the season to try to fortify to gear up against Golden State because the East is not just their goal?
I could see it, but there's not much. If you look at free agency, there isn't much there. They don't have the asset. They gave up their most valued asset in Kyrie Irving. If you look at a guy that may have a potential in a return, it's a guy maybe like Iman Shumpert, who they were really close to moving to Houston during the offseason in July. But outside of Iman Shumpert, I just don't see a player on this roster that holds the value for you to get a return. Maybe they go out and sign a free agent after they make a few releases in training camp. But I just don't see any type of asset for them on the roster to get a valuable return like you mentioned.
Now, you think Dwayne Wade has enough left to do anything for him?
I saw Dwayne Wade enough in Chicago to see that he still has flashes in him to perform at a high level in spurts. Now, of course, if he gets a buyout, you'd imagine Cleveland would jump to the top of the list. I think he'd consider several teams. Every contender would be in the mix for him. Just like when Jamal Crawford got his buyout from Atlanta, I think Jamal Crawford had his teams to choose from. I think Dwayne Wade would be in the same scenario. Cleveland, you'd imagine, would be a front runner, but again, he'll have his teams to choose from. And I don't think the Bulls and Dwayne Wade have gotten far down the line at all on an extension. I think that's still in the relative infancy of the talks.
All right, that's Shams Charania. Check him out, covering the NBA at The Vertical at Yahoo. My man, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir, Bomani. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, man. You have a good one.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
On the line with us now, check him out on ESPN Radio in Cleveland. We have him on in times like these. His name is Aaron Goldhammer. So, Aaron, how you guys feeling about the trade?
Well, Bomani, it's been an exhausting day for us in Cleveland. Not only are we reacting to this trade, but also the Browns. It looks like Deshaun Kaiser, the rookie, is going to be the starting quarterback. The Browns are always a hot topic here. So there's been a lot going on in the Cleveland sports world. And I think people in Cleveland today, the shock of Kyrie being gone has worn off a little bit. And they're pretty excited about Isaiah coming in here. He's an electric offensive player. You get a little toughness and grit, which I think they needed last year to defend the Warriors and Jay Crowder. And then I think maybe the biggest, most exciting piece of this whole deal is that Brooklyn pick in 2018, which with our lottery luck could be the number one pick in the 2018 draft. I think that's a pretty good haul for Kyrie Irving. So all in all, it's not like some big pall is hanging over Cleveland today, even though Kyrie's no longer with the team.
You realize that's the first time anyone has ever made reference to Cleveland and sports luck being good in the same sentence?
Well, dude, we hit the lottery
I know.
3 out of the 4 years.
I
That's
know.
the definition of luck.
I know. I'm just glad y'all can finally see some glass half full in this, right? Like at a different point, y'all wouldn't have viewed it in that way. We're talking to Aaron Goldhammer of ESPN Radio in Cleveland. Now, you said the shock of Kyrie being gone. I guess I'm surprised to hear that it was a shock given that we knew that this was coming.
I think there were a lot of people, Bomani, who after Brian Windhurst and Dave McMenamin gave this report a number of weeks ago, were just in denial about the whole situation. And they thought that Kyrie was going to end up coming to training camp and he and LeBron were going to powwow together at some Nike event in somewhere on the planet, and that they'd figure this thing out and that they'd end up being together going forward and they'd play the season and have a chance to win another championship together. But deep in the Cavs organization, I think they knew how real his trade demand was. There was a report today that Kyrie was not planning on showing up for training camp and media day if the Cavs hadn't traded him. So there was a little bit of a clock working in this thing. But it's also, I'll say this, when a guy demands a trade, like you still go to the team website and his name's on the roster page. And to see the pictures floating around of Kyrie wearing the green and white of the Celtics is a shock to the system. And it would be, I think, to any sports fan base. So while this was out there, I think that's where the surprise and the hurt in it lies. Remember, Kyrie, no matter what happens, has an indelible place in Cleveland sports history. He hit the biggest shot in Cleveland basketball history, maybe one of the 10 biggest shots in NBA history with a minute to go in Game 7 of the 2016 finals. He'll probably have his number retired, no doubt. He's probably going to the Hall of Fame. There may be a Kyrie statue, a street named after Kyrie in Cleveland. So this is different than LeBron leaving because he won Cleveland a championship, and there was a lot of thank you in the air today, in addition to some disappointment, and some excitement. It's all kind of wrapped up into one.
We're talking to Aaron Goldhammer of ESPN Radio in Cleveland. Speaking of LeBron leaving, are you guys ready to talk about that possibility, or are you guys holding off till you have to?
Sure. I mean, I think everybody here understands the reality that LeBron may leave and go to L.A. We know where there's smoke, there's fire. We've been through this before. But, Monty, here's the thing I don't like. I don't like the game playing that's gone on social media with LeBron. I think it's immature. I think it's high school behavior. And tweeting happy birthday, Magic Johnson, and all that stuff. He knows. He's savvy enough and smart enough to know the conversation that's going to start throughout the entire sports landscape around the globe. And I just feel like if he's planning on leaving or he thinks he might leave, that's fine, but you're kind of rubbing our faces in it again. And I don't appreciate that. And I think most Cleveland sports fans are exhausted with this. We've been on this roller coaster for good and bad. And you can say, like, I love LeBron and I appreciate everything he's done for Northeast Ohio, but also acknowledge that the roller coaster is exhausting. But everybody here realizes that he may go to L.A. I don't think anybody knows with 100% certainty what LeBron's going to do. Here's the way I'd put this, Bomani. If you told me 6 weeks ago that Kyrie was going to be a Celtic, I'd have said that you're insane. And so now you're asking me to project what's going to happen to LeBron 11 months from now. I don't know. The Cavs might have a championship. They might have gotten knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. LeBron might tear his ACL on opening night. I can't speculate on where he's going to sign next July. But, yes, everybody in Cleveland is real to the possibility that he could walk away.
All right, you're talking to Aaron Goldhammer, ESPN Radio in Cleveland here on The Right Time. Now, back to Kyrie going to Boston. Were you surprised that the Cavs would make a trade with their primary rival in the conference?
Yes, and I think that showed some real chutzpah on the part of Dan Gilbert and general manager Kobe Altman. Because if Kyrie beats you in the playoffs this year, it's going to be awfully difficult for you to stomach that. On the other hand, I think the Cavs feel confidence in LeBron. I hope they've done medical digging on Isaiah Thomas's hip, and they feel pretty good that he's going to be a good player for this year. He's not under contract beyond that. So I'm not that worried about Isaiah in his age 34 season and whether or not he's going to still be in the NBA. And they get Jay Crowder. I think they feel like as long as we've got LeBron, we're confident that we could get past Kyrie and the Celtics, even if they are the most formidable test that LeBron has seen in the East since probably Derrick Rose's Bulls a couple years ago.
Now, what do the Cavs still need?
The Cavs need defense, Bomani. They need guys that can guard people. Jay Crowder was a help, but man, oh man, Isaiah Thomas can't guard me, I don't think. And, I did score 4 points a game on my JCC team back in my 8th grade season, but he's the worst defensive player, I think, in the entire NBA. And that leaves them very vulnerable against, let's face it, this is all about trying to beat the Warriors. So the Cavs are going to have to come up with some defensive options. I think the other thing to watch is what they do with that Brooklyn pick, because I think they're going to be tempted to keep it and to want to use it to rebuild for the future. If LeBron does leave and walk out the door, Cavalier basketball, despite what a lot of people think, will go on beyond the scope of LeBron James. So the Cavs have to prepare for that real possibility just like the fans do. But I also know Dan Gilbert, and I wonder if at the deadline an opportunity comes up to deal for another all-star, if he's going to be tempted to parlay that pick and a trade exception together and bring in another player. That's going to be a big wait and see as we head through this season.
Well, where are you on this? We're on to Aaron Goldhammer of ESPN Radio in Cleveland, because I feel like the window you have is the only window that matters, and you need to go hard at this chance. You got 1 year left of LeBron. Even if the pick pans out to be a great player, your best chance is probably with a prime LeBron.
I would agree, and I think it totally depends on who is available. I don't know what stars are left and how they would fit in this mix. Like, if Oklahoma City's season totally went off the rails for some reason, Westbrook or George got hurt and you could trade for one or the other, I think the Cavs would have to really think about doing that and using the Brooklyn pick in order to make that happen. And I think how Brooklyn is doing during the season is going to impact that too. If they're better than everyone expects and that pick is fewer lotto balls, I don't know what its value really is. If they're terrible and they have 4 wins at the trade deadline and they're going to have the highest percentage of getting the number 1 pick, the Cavs are going to do better. So I can't decide what to do with that draft pick until I figure out who exactly is available. There were people speculating today about Marc Gasol and the situation in Memphis. I got to see what his health looks like. I'm not sure a guy like Marc Gasol really helps you all that much against the small ball lineup in the Warriors. So I think it totally depends on who's available and how the next 6 months or so play out in the league.
All right, that is Aaron Goldhammer. Check him out at ESPN Radio in Cleveland. Thanks so much for joining us, my man. I appreciate it.
You got it, Bo. Talk soon.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
While I'm thinking about it, they just said on the update about Brock Osweiler that the Browns want to trade him, but what's standing in the way is that $16 million that he's guaranteed next year on top of the money he's guaranteed this year. And, Shannon, I believe you made the best point about that being the holdup.
Nah, the main holdup was his play on the field because he is awful.
Right. Like, let me tell you this. If Alex Smith was available for trade, do you think somebody would be up there trying to make it happen? Because I think somebody would.
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt.
For $16 million. So if someone would trade for Alex Smith at those prices and not you, it ain't just the price tag, baby. It's the limit it's attached to. All right, 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. Just a thought here right fast about the whole Kyrie Irving trade situation, right? Just going back to some of the reasons why Kyrie wanted to leave Cleveland. Now, to me, if Kyrie just decided that he wanted to be on a team where he was the man, I'd get that. But we keep talking about how, well, it wasn't what Kyrie thought he was signing up for because Kyrie signed his deal, and then next thing you knew, LeBron signed like less than 2 weeks later. He thought it was going to be his team, and then it wasn't his team, and he wants it to be his team. And I'm like, look, if you want to be your team, that's fine. That being said, do you realize that what you're pointing out there is the equivalent of saying that Gordon Hayward should be salty when Kyrie shows up because Gordon Hayward thought it was going to be his team, except none of us really thought that it was going to be Gordon Hayward's team. And I think there is an argument to be made that Gordon Hayward is a better player than Kyrie Irving. You understand what I'm saying here? Like I worry to a degree here that if Kyrie's thing was he wanted it to be his team, it's your team now, man. And you get everything that comes with it being your team. And it's your team in a city that now has expectations of what this team should be. It's a city with people, I think, who believe that if you're going to bring in a guy like Kyrie Irving and the way that folks view him, that this should be a team that now is not just competing to win the East, but a team that should win the East. Yeah, you get to be the man on the team now. The difference between now and Cleveland, though, was that in Cleveland he understood that even while they were winning or really good, if something went wrong, he was going to be the first place to look because people weren't going to look to LeBron. But now you get all the pressure of being the man, and when something goes wrong, you're still going to be the first place they look. They're going to look at Gordon Hayward because Gordon Hayward isn't that caliber of player that you look at him in that way. So Kyrie's going to get a whole lot of the stresses of being the man that he did have to deal with before, and also the ones that he didn't have to deal with before. Yeah, good luck with that, man. Like, seriously, good luck with that. And I think it could work out well. There's a great possibility. This team could wind up making the finals. They'll get smoked if they do, but I'm not going to say they can't make the finals. But they were a long way away from being where Cleveland was last year. And Cleveland doesn't really look right now to be in a terribly different position than they were last year. Now, again, the Celtics have turned over a lot of their roster. They only got 4 guys left from last year. They've turned over a lot. But I don't know how much that turnover was really geared toward making them better for the coming season. And I have but so much of a vision in the NBA for the future when you have a hell of a chance at the right now. Although, Shannon, I guess I am also saying they don't really have a hell of a chance at the right now because I don't think they're going to be as good as the Warriors. Like, the Warriors got everybody on holding pattern.
Like, the entire league, they're just going to have to wait this out. They're just going to have to let this Warriors storm pass and just prepare themselves in the next, after the next 2 seasons?
Yeah, but at the same time, even with that said, I mean, the Cavs lost in 5 this year to Golden State, but I mean, we saw, like, those last 3, they gave them a push, right? We saw Oklahoma City take Golden State to 7 the year they won the 73 games. We saw the Cavs win that series against them the year they won the 73 games. We saw Golden State not look so great in that first championship run. So, like, as much as we think they're so much better than everybody else, are they really just totally inconquerable? Like, are they a team that nobody could beat in 4 out of 7? Like, I do think that, it's unlikely anybody to be able to put up as good a record over 82. But in 7? Do we really think nobody has a chance at them in 7? Like, I don't know what Houston is going to do, for example. I'm fascinated by what that situation is going to be. We really saying that's a team that really couldn't, like, give them something for 7? That's what we're saying, isn't it? Yeah.
What are we looking like? What are we looking at, honestly, as far as teams around the league that can give the Warriors a run? What is it? Houston?
Cleveland.
Houston, Cleveland. Houston.
Okay, San Antonio.
Cleveland. Okay, San Antonio.
But, I mean, keep it in mind, the San Antonio that we saw was the San Antonio without Kawhi Leonard. And granted, it was one game, but when they had Kawhi Leonard, they were blowing their doors off. Right? Is there a chance that maybe they're a team that could do it?
But see, that San Antonio thing, a lot of that's going to have to come down to how much do you trust
LaMarcus Aldridge?
Yes.
I mean, like I said, I feel like you could trust LaMarcus Aldridge if he's not number 1, maybe. Right? Can you trust him to be number 2? Can you do that? Like, I don't know. I guess on one hand, yes, I think the Warriors are absolutely the class of the league. But I also, that style of play they have, I'm still not so wild about shooting all those threes and all the variance that can come from that, except they're so good at shooting threes that the variance almost becomes irrelevant. But I still think that they are a team that somebody can beat in a best of 7. Even if I don't, exactly, know who this team is I'm talking about. League got 32 teams. I'm still here talking about 30 teams, rather. I'm still here talking about a hypothetical. Just trying to make the league intriguing. Do them apart, Adam Silver. Do them apart.
I guess the more intriguing question would be not the team who can give the Warriors the best chance to beat the Warriors this year. Is which team is best suited in 2 years to take over when the Warriors will probably lose a couple of their best players.
We're assuming that, by the way. Watch the Warriors mess around and pass the hat. Klay Thompson, I've decided to re-sign for $4 million a year. We will also be signing Freaky Greeky. Well, Sean Livingston's contract was up. It was time for him to go. We need to replace him with another tall point guard. So we went and got Giannis. Hey, baseball season rolls along. Tune in tonight as the Astros host the Nationals, presented by Indeed.com. Coverage begins at 7:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and the ESPN app. 888-729-3776. Let's hit the phone and talk to Adam in Pennsylvania. Adam, thanks for calling the right time.
Hey, what's up, Bomani? How you doing?
Doing all right, man. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I love the NBA that we're talking about it in late August with NFL preseason going on, and there's nothing more entertaining than when the NBA gets petty. And I don't think either team got better in this trade, but they sure as hell got pettier, and we're all going to get benefit from that on opening night.
Yeah, you are right about that, and I appreciate the call. There will be petty. Opening night will have lots of petty. Shady, you think LeBron going to talk to Kyrie about that little wedding video?
Nah, that's water under the bridge now. He's just focused on taking this one day at a time. He's not focused on those other things.
I mean, it's one thing to be throwing shade at me, but you out here throwing shade at me with the enemy, bruh. You still on the team, and you ain't on a team.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Joining us right now, he's a writer for ESPN.com, covers the NFL. His name is Mike Sando. Now, Mike, every year you do this with a quarterback tier ranking where we take all the quarterbacks and put them between tiers 1 and tier 5. So how do you go about doing that?
It started a few years ago just talking with coaches and personnel people in the league about, what everyone talks about. Hey, who are the best quarterbacks? But the part that is most interesting is the why. And so I've really learned how people in the league view the quarterbacks and basically how much help does our quarterback need to win? So when you see at the very top in tier 1, you see Aaron Rodgers lose offensive linemen. He's got no running backs. He's got a wide receiver playing running back. And still, by the end of the year, his stats will look like a Pro Bowl quarterback. Tom Brady, for the most part, you couldn't name, he's had so many receivers come through there. Drew Brees has had so many receivers come through. Yet all these guys at the top, when they're down late in the game, and it doesn't matter what kind of defense they have, it doesn't matter if they can scramble, it doesn't matter if they have a great running back. It's all on them. The defense knows where they're going to be, what they have to do. It's a pure pass situation. Do you melt? Or do you, come back from 28-3 on the biggest stage and win the game? So that's one extreme at the top, and at the bottom, if you don't have that guy, if you've got a lower tier quarterback, you're going to want to limit the number of times he drops back to pass. You're going to want to have a strong running game. You're going to want to have a good defense just to survive, let alone try to compete at the highest level.
All right, talking to Mike Sando of ESPN here on The Right Time. Now, Tier 1, of course, I think those become the ones that are pretty easy to get with. But Tier 2, I think, is where things get most fascinating because that's where we start getting into as much personal preference as much as anything else. So is there anybody you were surprised that was in Tier 2 that wasn't either in Tier 1 or Tier 3?
Surprised, no, but I think the view on Andrew Luck is changing because he's gotten hurt. I mean, Andrew carried that team when they weren't good around him and got into the playoffs a few years, but the hits are taking their toll. So I think at the top of Tier 2 and lower in the Tier 2 with Cam Newton, I think those are two really interesting guys because, you know, they're guys who carry their teams in different ways and are showing the physical strain of that. And so these are two guys who should be ascending in their primes, and we have questions about how long they're going to be able to hold up doing what they're doing.
Now, I have to say, I was shocked to see that Kirk Cousins was in Tier 2 because even the general manager of, the franchise previously has said that you need to put great talent around him for him to be good, which would seem to run counter to what this tier system says.
Well, he's at the very bottom. Is he the last guy in Tier 2?
He's the last one.
He's the last one. So he's a 2.48. So if one other guy in the survey, basically what people feel on Kirk Cousins is he's kind of a 3 who's played like a 2. I mean, people are giving him his due, but I think they feel like the ceiling for him is in the 2s. And people have questions, too, about, not only losing the wide receivers, but that Sean McVay did some special kind of scheming with him and that he may feel that, too. Plus, just the whole situation's a mess. I mean, I don't know how that he does anything but end up in Tier 3 by the end of the year.
All right, we're talking to Mike Sando of ESPN here on The Right Time. Now, speaking of Sean McVay, I saw that Jared Goff was in Tier 4 on this one. Is this just looking at Jared Goff on where he is right now, or is that an evaluation of where guys think he could be?
Yeah, I think for a guy like that, there's an incomplete amount of information, and so it is somewhat where he is right now. But I think the feeling on him is much less optimistic than it is on a Carson Wentz or a Dak Prescott or some other guys coming out of their first or second seasons. And the main reason is people just see the look in his eye and don't think he has it. They don't think that he's the type of guy. I mean, he's like the opposite of Jameis Winston. He just doesn't really have any swagger to him. And so we'll see. That may be unfair. He was in a terrible situation. The coach was, maybe not handling him the right way. The offense was prehistoric. It was horrible.
No, I'm sorry to be interrupted.
Yeah, no, that's good.
But you mentioned Jameis. He does have a lot of those classic quarterback traits, except this problem with throwing the ball to the other team. What did you get back in your intel from talking to guys about him?
I thought he would be higher because the love for him is high. Everybody loves him, but I think it's two things that are happening that why he's not higher. Number one, not much of a body of work. It's only a couple years, so guys don't anoint. And then number two, he needs to do it without turning the ball over. We saw in the game against Jacksonville. There's two things a young quarterback has to learn. Number one, protect yourself. You're an asset to the organization. Number two, protect the ball because everyone's job depends on how well you do that. So we've seen quarterbacks. Peyton Manning threw a lot of picks early in his career and threw hardly any at the end. Jameis, we'll find out if he can grow and do that, or is it just kind of part of his competitive nature that he's going to do it every once in a while like kind of Phillip Rivers does.
Well, also, did you take from Jay Cutler being in Tier 3 that NFL guys just can't quit him no matter how badly they try?
It's not a Tier 3 compliment to him. It's more of a Tier 3 like, hey, he just is what he is. When Jay was with Lovie Smith from 2010 to 2012, they were top 3 defense, and he was 27-13 as a starter. Since then, he has better stats, and he's 17-29. He is what he is. He's a Tier 3 guy who's going to be lifted up or dragged down by what's around him. That's all.
All right, we're talking to Mike Sando of ESPN here on The Right Time. Now, the Broncos quarterbacks both got themselves into Tier 4, both Simeon and Paxton Lynch, but I'm curious what you're hearing about Simeon because I can't tell if I'm being biased against him being a 7th-round pick when I just don't see much there.
Yeah, that's really the question with him. And you saw, like, when Russell Wilson came in as a 3rd-rounder, it took people a while to admit that he was better than that. And I think there's some of that working against Simeon. The other thing that really worked against him was their offensive line wasn't just bad. I mean, he changed as a quarterback because he got hit so much. I think he was better early in the year. But people see him as, I think, having potential to be a Tier 3 quarterback because there is some nuance to his game, unlike Paxton Lynch, who is really raw. It's just a question, do you want to go forward with a guy who's probably going to be a 3 at best?
All right, talking to Mike Sando of ESPN here on The Right Time, and I was going through Tier 3 and just counting up how many guys were there, and it seems like the average NFL starter is right between Alex Smith and Andy Dalton. Is that basically the conclusion that we've reached?
Absolutely. People say Alex is a 3 all day. They don't mean it as a slight, but I think you're right. There's 22 quarterbacks in the league making $15 million a year or more. Can you name 22 quarterbacks that you'd want to have on your team?
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one.
It's hard to, but it's just scarcity of the position, you know?
All right, now, also, Dak Prescott was at the top of Tier 3. Now, from the guys that you talked to, we're talking to Mike Sando of ESPN here on The Right Time. From the guys that you talked to, how much did they feel that this was something special about him, and how much of it was all the talent that surrounded him?
Well, there was a lot of guys who dropped their head, put their hands up, and said, I was wrong about how accurately he could throw the ball. I mean, that was just like the consensus on Dak was that he checked all the boxes of everything you want in a quarterback, except he didn't throw accurately, and that's critical in the NFL to put it on the money. And then he threw accurately this year, which I think is a testament to him and him working at his game. Maybe people were wrong in their scouting report, but there's great optimism on him. The reason he's still in 3 is what you said. Everything around him was great, but every time he was presented with a test, it seemed like he passed it. So there's great optimism on him to be a 2 this year, but they're not going to anoint him because of how great it was around him.
All right, last question from Mike Sando of ESPN. I'm looking at the cluster of guys in Tier 4 and then Robert Griffin kind of alone here in Tier 5. It seems like Tier 4 was the place where they're like, man, I really don't want to say anything that bad about somebody.
Hey, this is great. You must have got the internal copy where I had a couple guys who we didn't even leave in here because I don't think Griffin's on the one on the website, but I had him in there. He was the only guy who went into Tier 5, which is amazing. Think of all the quarterback situations, and no one's talking about bringing him in. Usually the guys in 4 are either someone who's hardly played and we're not going to say much about him yet, good or bad, or someone who's really descending, like a Brock Osweiler who's just tanked so bad that you say, all right, next year he's a 5 if he does it again.
Yeah, and by the way, for guys, and I do have this internal copy, the last 4 names that have listed here have one thing in common. They have all recently played or will soon play for the Cleveland Browns. That is Mike Sando, ESPN Cover the NFL.
Thanks for listening to the Right Time Podcast. Please come back tomorrow for more.